Hello there, thrill seekers, and what a thrilling ride we had yesterday. A lot of people got upset about what I said about Philip Kapleau, and to a certain extent, I apologize. I didn't mean to offend anybody. How about that? I wasn't trying to make anybody upset, and I wasn't trying to say Philip Kapleau was a bad person or that he was not trained properly in Zen. In fact, I said that in the video. He had a lot of training. He had extensive training in Zen. Or to say his books are bad or anything. I meant to point this out yesterday. These two books were very helpful. I read them right after my dad died, and I found them really useful. There's his books about Buddhist ideas about death and things, and he researched it really well, and I thought they were good books. I even think Three Pillars of Zen is a good book for explaining sort of that particular approach to Zen, which I happen to think is maybe not exactly the right approach, but it's a very good explanation of what that approach is and how it works. So I think it's a useful book to read. But some people were complaining in the comments section, and I wanted to address a little bit of this because I do think it's important to be clear about this kind of stuff. One of the things a few people said is that Philip Kapleau never claimed to be a Roshi or a Zen master, and that's just absurd. If you put out several books with Roshi before your name in the title and don't correct that through multiple editions of the books until it seems like to me, until people started complaining and pointing out that he didn't really qualify for the term Roshi, then he seemed to have taken that name off, or taken that part of his name off the books in subsequent editions. That's a claim. That's a claim. Even if he may have said to his students in person that I'm not a Roshi, or I'm not a, whatever, I'm not a transmitted teacher or whatever, don't matter. He put it on his books, and that's a very loud claim, and I certainly thought he was a transmitted master until years later when I found out he wasn't. So most of us did who read that book, I'm sure, who understood the term Roshi. So let's talk about the term Roshi a little bit. The term Roshi I've talked about before. Literally means old teacher. So, and it doesn't have it's not a title in standard Soto Zen. Somebody left a comment explaining how it is a title in the Sambo Kyodan lineage, and you can go back to the video prior to this, which is called Two Phony Zen Masters, something like that. Anyway, you can go scroll through the comments and read about that. I don't really understand it, but in standard Soto Zen, it's not a title, it's just an honorific that you call somebody. But you don't call somebody Roshi unless they are a transmitted teacher, okay? So you don't just call just any old teacher Roshi. You don't call your English teacher Roshi or your physics teacher Roshi or something like that. Even if he's an old teacher, that's not the way it's used. And an interesting thing about the usage of the word Roshi is it's something that doesn't translate well into English, how it feels to a Japanese speaker, which I am. I'm not a brilliant Japanese speaker, but I do speak and understand the language. And the way it feels to a person who speaks Japanese is hard to explain if you don't speak Japanese. But I thought of a good example, which is it's kind of like the word handsome, right? Now, if my wife calls me handsome, or somebody in the comments section of this video calls me handsome, that's nice. I feel good, and I don't reject that, and I let them call me handsome. That's great. But it's a completely different thing if I start calling myself handsome, right? I mean, you can understand the difference. If I put on the titles of under the titles of my book as the author, handsome Brad Warner, or introduced myself to you and said, "Hi, I'm handsome Brad Warner." That feels very different, right? So that is how it feels to a Japanese speaker when somebody just applies the name Roshi to themselves. Now, I understand it's done a lot in the U.S., in the Sambo Kyodan lineage, or I guess it's Sambo Zen, somebody said anyway. There used to be that restaurant chain called Sambo's, but they had to change it. But I remember when I was a kid, there was Sambo's were still around. Anyway, so it feels totally different if I call myself handsome. And so it feels totally different if I call myself Roshi. I never would do that. So that's kind of the feeling of it. So putting it on your own books is, it's like, to me it feels like I said, if I put my books out as Handsome Brad Warner, it just, it's not good. Now, as for this matter of claiming to be a master and giving yourself that title, giving yourself a title that is reserved for transmitted Zen teachers. I'm trying to... There's idiots who run up and down this street all the time in loud cars. Anyway, giving yourself that title, let me try to... I tried to come up with an example. So let's say there's a guy, Patrick O'Malley, and he goes to, he's a very sincere Catholic, believes in the Holy Trinity and the teachings of Jesus, and he's a good guy, a very good man, a solid person. So he goes into the seminary to become a priest. And he's going through, and he's almost to the end of his priest training. I don't really know how it's done in the Catholic Church, but he's all about ready to get ordained as a Catholic priest. But then he discovers that the people who are responsible for his ordination are doing bad things. Maybe they're siphoning money off the church into their own pockets. Maybe they're doing something with the choir boys. Who knows? They're doing something bad. So he's about to expose them, and in revenge, those guys deny his ordination. So if Patrick O'Malley then, subsequent to this, without doing anything to fix this problem of being denied ordination, goes out to some little town in Idaho, sets up a church, and starts calling himself Father O'Malley, even though he might be a very good man, even though he might really understand the Catholic doctrine deeply and be better than the average priest, or certainly better than the priests who denied him ordination, he's not really Father O'Malley. So this is a whole different thing. So calling himself Father O'Malley is a lie. He's not Father O'Malley because he hasn't done the things you do. Now, that doesn't mean that doing those things, that going through this process is a guarantee of goodness and righteousness. And I wasn't claiming that at all. And I'm not claiming that, for example, I am better than Philip Kapleau because I did go through that process and I am duly, I have the paperwork and all the stuff. And he didn't. In fact, it seems like Philip Kapleau did more of what one would normally consider the stereotypical type of Zen training than I did. And so I do have respect for him for that. But to call himself a transmitted master when he's not is just that's not true. And that's the point I was trying to make. I just looked it up this morning, and I discovered that there's no law preventing someone from calling themselves a doctor, at least in America. There are problems if one sets up a medical office and calls oneself doctor, but if I published a bunch of books under the name Dr. Brad Warner, there's no law preventing me from doing that. But if subsequent to all those books getting published, people found out that I only had a bachelor's degree, they could complain, and I'd probably want to take the word doctor off of the titles of my books. Just saying. Now, there's all sorts of options that a person who has been denied sort of Dharma transmission could take. If you are, as Kapleau was, well-versed in the Japanese language and Japanese culture and well-connected in the Zen world in Japan, you could probably find somebody who would complete your transmission for you who was not your main teacher if you wanted to do that. People do that all the time. It happens. And so, or the other option is just to be completely upfront about the thing and just say you're doing something different, which is kind of what Kapleau's student Toni Packer did. I don't know a whole lot about Toni Packer. There used to be a couple of people who come to my sittings in Santa Monica who were Toni Packer's students, and I heard a little bit from them. And I was pretty impressed with Toni Packer, but her thing was that she sort of rejected Zen completely, so she doesn't apparently. This is just what I remember hearing from them. She doesn't wear the robes. She doesn't call herself Roshi. She doesn't do any of that stuff. But she still leads retreats that are basically Zen retreats and has people do Zazen and stuff, but not making any claims for the lineage, being a lineage holder. And that's the thing. This whole lineage holder thing is something I wanted to talk about, and I don't know, it's a thing, and that's what I wanted to point out, and it's a real thing. It's something you want to pay attention to. It's, as I said earlier, not an assurance that the person is going to be a good person or that they're going to follow all the rules or et cetera, et cetera. As we know, there have been a few major scandals among transmitted Zen teachers. Edo Shimano Roshi, Joshu Sasaki Roshi, people who allegedly, and I don't want to get into the whole mess of, because I'll have their students coming at me if I do, but there are certainly strong allegations about both of those teachers not doing the right thing. And they were people whose transmissions are unquestionable. They got the paperwork, they got the whole deal. So the point I'm trying to make is that there is this system and it does exist. I'm not really trying to say it's a great thing or that it fixes all the problems that it's attempting to fix, but it is a thing. And not every sort of mystical tradition, as I said yesterday, has that thing. Often it's just kind of a handshake deal. People are just told, you're a teacher now, and there you go. I don't know if I've made my point or if people are still going to be mad at me, but the thing is, I don't have anything against Philip Kapleau. I think he seems to have been a pretty good teacher. I have some quibbles with the style of Zen that he taught, but that could be, you might want to call that a sectarian matter. I wouldn't, but you might. And so I don't think that's really relevant in assessing how he was as a teacher. I've led retreats at a couple of his places. I did a retreat in Poland at a Philip Kapleau place. I did a retreat in Finland at a place that I think was established in the Philip Kapleau lineage. That was a long time ago. I even spoke at the Rochester Zen Center, the place where the place that he established, and it was kind of sad, actually, because when I went to the Rochester Zen Center, I'm there at one of the, founding places of Zen in America, and I get in the room and I'm speaking from memory here, but it's what I remember is about 3/4 of the original Zendo has been converted into a yoga studio. So the Zen stuff only takes place in the very back of the Rochester Zen Center's original Zendo now. At least that's what it looked like to me. So that was kind of sad, and it kind of spoke to the decline of this thing, and that's too bad. I wish Rochester Zen Center was doing better as far as Zen, and I wish them the best, and all of Philip Kapleau's students the best, and horses for courses and all that. It's none of my business that they teach a style of Zen that I have a kind of a problem with. I don't really like the emphasis on enlightenment experiences, which is especially clear if you read the 3 pillars of Zen, that the enlightenment experience is the thing, the goal of Zen. And I don't understand how people who call themselves followers of Dogen, which they do, could teach a style that emphasizes enlightenment experiences like that, because Dogen was so clearly against that way of doing things. But that's my problem with them, and we can leave that for another day. So anyway, if you want to donate to me saying more bad things and wrong speech, as somebody said in the comments about Zen, you can go to the URL, or not the URL, you can go to the links that you're seeing in below in the description on YouTube, or you can go to the URL that you are now seeing on the screen, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. That's where you'll find my PayPal and Patreon links, and those are my main ways of making a living, and I appreciate your support, but as always, you don't got to support me if you don't want to support me. All right, we'll see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Have a good 4th of July. I probably won't put up a video tomorrow because it's 4th of July. Actually, I should do one on independence and the different meaning of freedom between Zen ideas of freedom and sort of American ideas of freedom. But I probably won't do that tomorrow. Anyway, we'll see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Bye. Hey, Ziggy. You came out in the sun, didn't you? Are you enjoying the sun? You getting vitamin D's and stuff? Yeah, it's pretty hot out here, though. You probably want to go inside.
Alright, we'll see you later, Ziggy. Bye.